Welcome to this edition of Meet America. I'm Annie Griffin, your host, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Obamacare. Because when you listen to the radio, a lot of these, what I suspect are Republican, paid-for commentators, they are all telling us that Obamacare is going to be more expensive and that it's going to ruin the country economically and that your premiums are going to go up. And I was believing this, you know, I really was, because they're very, very adamant about what they're talking about. However, a friend of mine who was paying $350 a month for her health insurance, she's in her 50s and can't afford Medicare and isn't on Medicare yet. She got a letter from her insurance company saying that under Obamacare her premium was going to go up, and so she had to cancel her insurance. But I'm going to let you hear it from her on the phone, her own story about how wonderful Obamacare is, in fact. So please do not believe these people, that these Republicans, who really, in my opinion, aren't even Republicans anymore. They are capitalist people who are driven by corporate greed, and they do not care about us at all. And they're lying to the American people about everything from genetically modified organisms and how wonderful they are, to Obamacare, to everything, to Medicare, that Medicare is socialism. And Medicare has saved so many people's lives. So don't believe everything you hear. Let's hear it from the citizens themselves, not from these radio commentators that are paid for behind the scenes by people that want them to misinform the public. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. All right, so we have Marie on the phone now, and she's going to tell you her experience with Obamacare. Welcome to our show, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, why don't you begin from the beginning? You were paying how much a month for your insurance?
With insurance, every year they, raise it 50, sometimes more than that. I was paying $336, I think, right before Obamacare, with a $10,000 deductible, so before Obamacare, I got a letter saying that my insurance was going to jump up to $789.
And where did you get this letter from?
My insurance company.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had heard about Obamacare, and I had asked them, and they said, well, you have to apply online. So I did it. So now I'm paying $131 with a $5,000 deductible. So that's affordable to me, so I don't understand the complaints about Obamacare. I mean, for me, it's been a real blessing. I couldn't pay almost $800 a month, and I'm a person that goes to the doctor once a year for my, yearly exam. So I wouldn't have insurance today if it wasn't for Obamacare.
So basically, it seems to me that the insurance company was not informing you that under Obamacare you would have lower premiums. Is that correct?
No. I got the letter and I called myself, and I had to shop around.
Okay, but what I
had to call an insurance agent to actually have that worked out for me so I could get on a good plan. So you do have to do, as far as I'm concerned, I had to do the footwork.
Okay, so the insurance companies, when you get your letter in the mail saying that your premiums are going up from $369 to $800, that's pretty shocking, and that's very misleading. So you see, you have the Republicans who, in my opinion, aren't even Republicans anymore, and a lot of Democrats aren't even Democrats anymore. But what really shocks me is so many Republicans are, like Rand Paul is saying that, Obamacare is ruining the public's ability to pay for insurance, and misleading the American people. So here you have it from a citizen, folks, herself that has experienced this. And it is, to me, the Republicans are no longer representing a republic. They're representing insurance companies who don't like Obamacare because your premiums are being lowered. And I'd also like to say, in retrospect, you did go and have a colonoscopy, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And was that paid for under Obamacare?
Yes.
Something that, now, when I had mine, I had to pay for it myself.
Right.
So, you know, before Obamacare. So, you know, this is the scandal and the lies that are being perpetuated to literally misinform the American people. Now, they had found a polyp, is that right?
No, every 10 years after, I believe it's 50, from 50 on, they say you should have a colonoscopy.
Right.
So I went, and yes, I did have one many years ago, and I don't remember why, but there was nothing going on. Maybe it was just the doctor thought I should have that. And this last time was a few years ago, and I didn't have to pay for it this time. So there is preventative medicine.
Right, I understand. The question, though, being is that didn't they find something in this colonoscopy? They found a little non-cancerous growth?
Yes, that's very common, though.
Very common, but my point is that little non-cancerous growth can turn into a cancerous growth.
Yeah, it can. So when you have something like that, they usually ask you, instead of every 10 years, to come every 5 years.
Yeah.
Even sooner than that.
And my point being, because you were able to afford the colonoscopy, you were able to find that growth before it became cancerous.
Exactly.
And before it became a great expense for the American people, because cancer in the colon can cost, up to $50,000 for operations and removal of intestines. So you see how preventative medicine is helping. But the insurance companies and the medical industry, they want your money. And that's my take on why there's such an attack on Obamacare.
Right.
Anyway, welcome everyone to this edition of Meet America. I'm Annie Griffin, your host, and today we're going to be talking about are conservators stealing from the rich? And I believe in certain circumstances they are. And so today we have with us two guests that are testimony to what has happened to them and their family. And if you're not rich, you don't have to worry about this. But if you are rich, they are out to get your money. The courts, the judges, the conservators, at least this seems to be the case in Santa Barbara, California. There seems to be a lot of that going on. So I want to welcome, this is Patricia Rosen. Hi, Pat. Welcome to our show. And then this is Bryan. You're the son, right, of Patricia Rosen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So you have a story to tell the audience. So, Patricia, I'll ask some questions for you. And tell me, what has your experience been with conservatorship? How did it first start?
I will tell you how it first started. And I want to warn everyone to be careful, because this can happen to everyone. What happened was I was in an automobile accident and my husband was killed, my wonderful husband. And I ended up in the hospital, and I had a nice lady come, really sweet, and she said, "I will be your conservator." And I said, "What does that mean? What do I need a conservator for? What does a conservator do?" And she said, "Well, I'll make sure everything is all right when you go home. Lights are on and everything." I said, "Well, that sounds very nice." And she was sweet, and I said, "Thank you." But I learned a lot. I had a very interesting experience. Sure, she did come to the house, she did that. She did all of the things she said. However, then she started to charge me money for everything, and I had no idea what she was going to do that for. She looked all around the house, and she said, yes, this is a very nice place. I would like to have a housekeeper come in here and take care of you, and someone to cook for you. And I said, I don't need anyone to cook for me. I can cook well, and I'm used to taking care of my home and my garden. And she said, well, just for a while. So she had a very pleasant lady come to the house when I got home. And sure enough, she was vacuuming and everything. And then she went out in the yard and started pulling weeds that she could find from the garden. And I said, honey, I said, why are you doing this? Because I do this all the time, and I love taking care of my home. She said, I'm sorry. I was hired to do this. And she told me, she was so wonderful, she said, you know, they hired me because they wanted you to look like you couldn't care for yourself. And they liked your house and everything. And I found out, surely they really liked my house. This lady left, by the way. She didn't want to work for them because she felt they were doing something crooked. The lady came to the house and she said she would like this house and she's going to own this house. This is going to be her house. And she laughed. She thought that was very funny. And because I hadn't, what could I do? My husband was killed in the accident. And I thought, well, I didn't know what a conservative meant. But this is why it's important for everyone to know you have to be very, very careful if something like this happens to you. Here I had an extremely wonderful, normal life, a wonderful home and a husband, and this woman came and started to take everything away from me. She was my conservator. So you have to be very careful if someone does this to you, okay? Okay, thank you.
Well, you know, I'm curious, apparently, did you have to, you were in hospital, you had broken bones, a concussion, I understand.
Yes.
Very, very severely under drugs, and this woman comes up to you, and you're a very trusting person because back in the 40s and 50s, people trusted each other, right?
Yes.
So you probably thought that this person was a, you know, honest person trying to help you.
I believed her.
You believed her, and then all of a sudden, did you have to? Do you remember you're drugged up in hospital? Did you have to sign some papers?
Yes.
So you signed these papers, thinking, did you read them, or were you gaga?
No, she came to the hospital with these papers, and she said she'll be my conservator. Just sign these papers. And she was smiling and really nice, and I said, of course. So I signed the papers. Worst thing in the world anyone could do. And I found out later that not only did I sign these papers to take over my house, but my bank account too. So my husband's pension went right into my bank account, and she was able to put her name on the same account as mine. And I found out that his money that I would get every month wasn't coming to me at all, it was coming to her. I went to the bank. Oh, a lady called me, and she called from the bank, and she said, you have a $5,000 CD that your husband bought before he died, and you can come and pick it up whenever you want to. And I said, oh, I'll be right down. Thank you. And sure enough, I went down there, and it was gone. It wasn't there anymore. And she said, because my conservator came and picked it up, because a conservator has the ability to take over my whole life. And I thought if my husband just knew this, you know, he would be sick. He was the kind of guy that he said if anything ever happened to him, I would be in good shape because he would take care of me even though he weren't around anymore. So this is why I want to warn everyone, be careful. If anything like this happens to you, don't be naive like I was. And check it out thoroughly before. But thank heavens, I'll tell you what, the good thing that happened. The public guardian found out about it, a wonderful public guardian, and she said, what in the world? How could you let this happen? I didn't know. Well, she changed everything for me. She took care of everything, and thank heavens I was so happy to have her. This was the County of Santa Barbara public guardian. Anyway, I thought I would just warn everyone to be very careful.
Well, I want to mention here that if you were a poor person, there would be no conservator, coming after you. It's, that's what I mean. That's why it's money driven, in my opinion. You see all these. There was an 80-year-old homeless woman in Santa Barbara and here on the streets sleeping in their cars. We just had one testifying in front of City Council. She's 80 years old and she's sleeping in her car. But she doesn't have to worry about conservators because she doesn't have any money. So where are the conservators for the poor,
Yes.
And, but I'd like to add here, now where was your family during this time?
Well, my family, my son lived in Sweden. He really didn't know what was going on. My daughter didn't know what was going on either. She was no help at all. She didn't know what to do. So I really had no family to help. So I had Bryan, but Bryan was too young to really know what was going on. So that's, I was left to my own. But the public guardian, again,
Okay.
She was wonderful. I talked to her and she took care of everything for me. So thank heavens for that. And if this ever happens to you, someone like this woman, this public guardian who worked for the County of Santa Barbara, was there for me, and I thank her all the time. Even now I say, well, thank you so much. You saved my life. You really did. Wonderful person. I shouldn't mention her name, so I won't.
Oh, okay. So now, what is your situation now? I understand did you have to go to court to get back your ability to take care of your own fare and spend money how you wanted, or what happened?
No, the public guardian had a lot of clout with the judge. And she talked to the judge, and she explained the whole situation to the judge. And I didn't have to do anything. She took care of everything for me.
So you're not under any kind of conservatorship, or?
No, I'm free.
Now, so you're your own trustee of the estate?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, Patricia, thank you so much for warning the public, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. So, public, be warned, and that's what we got to be. Thank you so much for letting the public know.
You're very welcome. Right. Bye now.
Bye.
I'm ready.
All right. Our next segment is going to be our guest speaker, Bryan Rosen. Bryan, thanks for being with us today.
Yes, it's really nice to be here. Annie?
And you might have to speak up because these microphones are sometimes a little soft. But anyway, so Bryan, why don't you tell us what you've experienced with some friends down in Santa Barbara concerning conservatorships, because I know you've been a big champion for those people.
It's a whole situation, Annie. It's all about money. You have people with money, and the conservators, the attorneys who make $350 to $400 an hour. The conservators make around $140 an hour last time I checked. I think it's more now. The court-appointed attorneys, they all work together to make money off of it's a very lucrative thing. They're all working together. And the conservative kind of gets left in the dust, in my opinion. Now, if the family members are concerned, some family members care and other family members don't. I believe they gang up on the ones that care. Now, the family members that care either don't have legal wherewithal or the money to hire an attorney. and they get creamed by the system. They don't know how to file things, or they have to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on an attorney to file things correctly. And then I believe the attorneys sometimes, what I've seen all too often is they get turned over, the attorney turns them over to the wolves because the attorney would rather ultimately work with the conservators and the system instead of the family members. There's a lot more money to be made there. So it's just rotten to the core. The poor conservatee, I know a friend of mine started the farmers markets. She was into organic food. She had all this money. She was famous, she and her brother in the old days. And her brother was under conservatorship first, and then she was trashed all the time because she was bringing him organic food, and they were making up all kinds of stories about how she was harming him. But she got a letter from a very renowned local nutritional institute. Maybe I shouldn't say the name, or maybe I should, but they're very famous in Santa Barbara, Annie, and that she would make a very good conservator. But it didn't stop the conservators from trashing her to the courts. Well, the brother finally died under the care of the conservators. He was at a miserable little Alzheimer's facility being drugged up in Santa Barbara. And then what happened, they harassed her and harangued her so much, she just went bonkers. I'd go bonkers under those circumstances. And once you go bonkers, they never allow you to recover. They say you're crazy. And then they put her under conservatorship, and they drugged her, and they drugged her and drugged her. They believe in drugs. They just believe completely in the whole pharmaceutical drug industry. The completely opposite from the natural. There's a whole bunch of people out there. She didn't believe in drugs. She said she's never taken a drug in her life. It doesn't even take aspirin, but now they drug her. They put it in the food. It's so much for respecting. They're supposed to respect a person's past precedent and lifestyle, but they don't. They have the power. You know, Mahatma Gandhi, I agree with him that he was very anti-drug and felt they had very harmful side effects and treated symptoms. But it's the only medicine they know. So now she was in this miserable little room with all of those millions of dollars that she inherited. And, well, they finally painted the room, made it look a little better. It was in a little place that went near Ojai. And now apparently they're giving her some organic food, which is good. It's the least they could do. I know she wanted to go to the farmer's market, and I don't think that ever happened. It's such a rotten situation, and it's all about money. And I strongly believe that the whole court system needs to be revamped. You have a judge and they're often friends, high elite, high-paid attorneys, conservators, family members. Don't have input. It gets thrown out on a legal technicality or something because they don't do a petition right, or they don't know how to do a petition, or even if they hire an attorney, the attorney throws them to the wolves. And plus you have a judge who's not only doing probate and old people, and there's nothing more pathetic than seeing those older people coming into court for their freedom and being virtually beaten up by the system. I remember a woman I know in Santa Barbara, an older woman, they would always say she was obsessing, you know, and the judge agreed with the attorney, and she just wanted her freedom. She's perfectly competent. I think she's more competent than many people half her age, but because the children were kind of nutty, and she lost her husband, and she flipped out because he had been taking care of her all those years, she gave some money, helped one daughter, and they never forgot it. They never allow a person a chance to recover. They never allow a person a chance to get control of their money. Plus, they're taking all the money for themselves. And the attorney for this poor woman, I remember he was telling the court how he was doing it for nothing. He was doing it as a favor, but it turned out later he changed that story. Oh, he'd pay himself after she died. I believe this is a form of redistribution of wealth. I think these attorneys and conservators take advantage of divided families and try to divide them further so they can distribute the wealth to this tiny, often I believe they're almost the 1% or the top 10%, very, very wealthy people acquire houses, properties, very smart legally, and it takes the wealth away from the families and often reduces them to poverty if they're really trying to spend their own money to rescue and get the freedom or the dignity or the proper care for the older people, perhaps an organic food, healthy diet, as opposed to just the drugging regime, which seems to just make people go downhill. I've seen a lot of horrible things. I believe we need another kind of system, Annie. I think we need to have a special judge just for older people. I think family members' input should be taken, and the conservator has to submit it into the court record so the family members don't have to spend lots of money. It just all gets put on the record. The conservatee should have the rights to visitation legally. I'm going on and on, but in order to have restrict visitation, it takes a court order legally. But that doesn't stop them from trying to restrict visitation without a court order, and the judges just seem to go along with it. I remember this poor man and his girlfriend. She put him under conservatorship because he was an alcoholic and he was spending a lot of money, and she said that was the worst thing that she ever did. And the conservator finally she was appointed his power of attorney for health care and so forth, but the conservator finally went to the court to try to overturn that, and it was, lo and behold, it was successful because the conservator was highly respected by the court system and the judge, and the judge said that the visitation restrictions were quite all right, and we're going to stand, but there was no legal. You can't restrict visitation. There you have to. It's like a restraining order. Legally, if somebody tries to get a restraining order on you, you have the right to have a hearing. You have the right to respond, but the judges just go without that, and you go try to visit. They just try to do it anyway without going through all that. You try to visit these people, relatives, friends. And then the facility, a little bed and board home in Santa Barbara, they called the police. I was there when that happened. It was really scary what I saw. And I can tell, this is the most scary thing I've ever seen. She called me up and said, this poor man, I'll call him John. I'll change the name because I don't want them to, it's big money and they don't want to lose business, and I don't need to be sued. But she said, he's lying on the floor, and you need to come down there. He's been lying on the floor for an hour, and so they won't get him up.
Who was lying on the floor?
The conservative, the older man. He was an alcoholic, but they started drugging him with these antipsychotic drugs like Seroquel, and then they said he had dementia. And the doctor earlier on said, "Oh, he doesn't have dementia. He just is an alcoholic." Well, the doctor changed his story because they're all working together, big money. This is a doctor that's very respected in Santa Barbara, who does drugging older people and other things. So I came down there and I saw him lying on the floor, and he smelled like urine and stench and poop. And I went into it was past the hours. This one woman, they were restricting her to not be there after.
Now, this is his girlfriend who put him under conservatorship?
Originally, yeah, but they turned on her. And then they tried to restrict visitation, and they made stories up about her.
But why would she put him under conservatorship? I'm just trying to get the story straight because I'm confused here.
Because he was a binge alcoholic, and she was afraid. She trusted the conservators. I trusted conservators. I trusted attorneys in those days. I thought they were all very well-meaning, decent people. And some indeed are. But we mustn't forget that. But the trouble is, money creeps into the equation. Any system that revolves around money is bound to be corrupted without checks and balances. So I go into that little facility where they restricted her visitation after she wasn't supposed to be there after 4 p.m. I wasn't under any kind of visitation restriction. I saw him lying on the floor and the smell of poop and everything. And I said to the woman there, who was the only one there apparently, somebody's got to help him up. You can't just leave him there like this. So basically, what did she do? What did she do? She said, "I'm going to call the police on you." And I said, "You can't just leave him here. You go ahead and do what you're going to do." So when the police came, I just decided to leave the premises. I didn't want to, be in the middle of it. But it was very upsetting. She was making her salad, you know, and the police talked to us at great length, and, you know, she filed a little report with them, and she had also filed with the district attorney's office.
So you did stay there?
Outside the premises when the police came.
Okay, all right.
And everyone was contacted. I submitted a long thing to the local district attorney's office, but she wouldn't do anything about it. You know,
and she being who?
The district attorney.
Oh, I see.
I can give her name. She's a well-known public figure. Joyce Dudley. You know, our friend Edmund was persecuted for, I can give his name. He was visiting the nursing home for 28 years. He was religious. He was giving services. He was playing the violin. And when he started complaining about abuse at the nursing home, he was suddenly told that he couldn't visit the residents. Well, the residents have the right to visitation. So the district attorney, he had every legal right to be there, and the residents had every legal right to receive visitors. Well, the district attorney basically went after him, the district attorney's office, same district attorney. I wrote a little article about it online on the independent.com. You can type in my name, Bryan Rosen, B-R-Y-A-N-R-O-S-E-N, and you'll see some of the letters to the editors and the articles I did. So and then he got an attorney that helped him for free. That was nice. The attorney
this is the alcoholic?
No, we're back to Edmund now, who helped visiting nursing homes for 28 years.
I see.
And I can say the name of this. I can probably say the name of this one, but I won't. It's a famous nursing home. So Edmund was he found an attorney who was going to help him for free, a guy with the ACLU who worked with the ACLU, but the attorney wanted him to admit guilt and promised not to do those things. And Edmund finally let the attorney go, and then the district attorney's office finally ended up dropping all the charges, because what were they supposed to do?
So in other words, I'm just trying to clarify this because I'm a little confused. You're saying that Edmund is the man who was trying to get help for this alcoholic that was...
No, Edmund was... I segued into Edmund. He had been visiting residents in a nursing home facility for 28 years. When he reported abuse, his visitation was curtailed, which was a violation of the residents' rights. The district attorney and the system went after Edmund. They should have gone after the nursing home. The state went after the nursing home and closed them down. Edmund was vindicated. The district attorney wasn't interested in cooperating with the state in shutting down this nursing home. I guess I can say the name of it. It's been on TV before. Central Coast Nursing Home. And that was sad to me, that the district attorney would be persecuting this poor guy who's low income, who had been volunteering his time all those years. But I'm glad he was vindicated, and I'd like the district attorney. I know the nursing homes bring a lot of money into the community. I know they're an economic factor. It doesn't seem that anybody wants to go after them. But I want to switch back now, if I may, to the poor guy, the alcoholic lying on the floor. Right. Anyway, the police came, they questioned everybody, and like I said, I did a long report of evidence to the district attorney's office, and then the police said, "Oh, he's fine now. You know, his clothes are clean." Well, they changed his clothes, you know, and they cleaned him up when the police came, the sheriff came. And so that was it. And it was amazing, because there was so much character assassination against this girlfriend of this guy, this poor binge alcoholic guy. And he was going really downhill. She believed the drugs were killing him and making him like this. He kept falling and falling and falling, and this place kept letting him fall and fall and fall. And if the judge, I guess I can say the name, a judge, public figure, Judge Colleen Stern supported the visitation restriction, and I believe that this man would not have fallen. I believe this man would be alive today. He fell over and over again. The place wasn't safe. There were steps and closets with steps. I believe none of this would have happened. I remember when after he fell, he went to Mission, a place in Santa Barbara, a convalescent place, a recovery place. He had some pretty serious injuries, and the woman was real nervous. They all wanted to meet with her there, and I said, you know, have some witnesses. I think it's always important to have witnesses. So Edmund was going to go over there. But then I found out she got advice to not even meet with him, so the meeting was called off at that place, that recovery home. But Edmund still went out there. He didn't know the meeting was called off, but nobody else showed up. Nobody else showed up. So what's funny is they made the facility made up a story that they were having a protest outside the place, that there was like 12 or 14 people all protesting, a bunch of radicals protesting, and that never ever occurred. It's so funny, the things that happen. I just am appalled. Harry, this sweet John should never have died. I believe he did not have dementia. I believe he was drugged into that state. I believe he was running out of money, so they had to hasten his death. They don't want to just dump a person on the streets. That's too embarrassing. I believe. This is my opinion. I could be wrong about a lot of things, but my strongest opinion is if the girlfriend who loved him was around and had care of him, he wouldn't have fallen all those times. This wouldn't have, the serious and then damage wouldn't have happened, and he ended up in hospice, and he was basically starved to death. They don't feed the people. Just a terrible situation that happened. And God help us all when we get old in this country. We need a new system. God help us all. The way a society treats its weakest members, whether animals or poor people or elderly, is appalling. How we treat our weakest members is how you judge a society. I wish all the money these attorneys and conservators were making were given to help people. Help animals, help wild horses, help elderly people, not to enrich the pockets of these people. It just makes me so mad. It's an upsetting thing. It's an upsetting thing. You're going to get beat up if you go against the system. Believe me, you're going to be beaten up big time. Assassinated your character in it's a horrendous system. I've been through the ringer with it, and I've seen other people go through it. They're traumatized this day. They get a thing called legal abuse syndrome. It's a real psychological order called legal abuse syndrome. They get so abused legally. It's what would you liken that to? Post-traumatic stress disorder, or the military people often have a very high stress disorder. They get legal abuse syndrome. They get so legally abused over and over again. And this is what the courts are doing to the elderly under conservatorship that testify, that go in there for their freedom. This is what the courts are doing to people who are speaking out on behalf of the elderly. We need a new court system. We need a court system just for the elderly to get this legalistic nonsense out of there.
Well, Bryan, that's quite a testimony. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done trying to help the elderly. We're all getting older out there, folks, and so we somehow, by getting this message out, be sure if you have a lot of money, that your children aren't going to be turning on you because they want the money. Do whatever you can to make sure the conservator you choose is not going to have the ability to do what they want after you're gone. Thank you so much, and we're going to sign off now. Thanks for watching this segment of Meet America. Welcome to our next segment on Meet America. I'm Annie Griffin, your host, and we're talking about wild horses are America. They are the heart and soul of the American people. And for the BLM to illegally sell over 1,700 wild horses to slaughter with our tax dollars is a crime against the American people. And the Office of Investigation recently came out with a report, and it was conclusive that Tom Davis bought at $10 a head 1,794 of our wild horses that have been rounded up by the BLM and sold to slaughter illegally. And one of my great heroes in this regard is Congressman Sam Farr and Congresswoman Lugan, who wrote a letter to Loretta Lynch, the U.S. Attorney, asking that these BLM officials and Tom Davis are prosecuted in the full extent of the law. Now, why is this so important? It's important because if the government doesn't prosecute criminals that are within our governmental system because it just wants to throw everything under the rug, our whole law system becomes rotten from within, and there's no justice, which is what Bryan was talking about earlier. And it affects everyone, this unraveling of the tapestry of our governmental laws. So what we're going to do, first of all, is watch this little clip. This is a roundup I attended. Bryan also attended it. It was 12 below zero weather. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. We asked the BLM to withhold these roundups because it was too cold. If you and I went out and rode our horses at a full gallop for 15 miles or more so that they were covered with sweat, we would be thrown in jail for cruelty to animals. But the BLM gets away with it with your tax dollars. So what this show is trying to do is show you how important it is that you contact Attorney General Loretta Lynch and give her the support she needs to prosecute the BLM officials and Tom Davis. If this doesn't happen, she's not going to get the support. She's getting a lot of, how do you say, I'm sure, discouragement from within the ranks of our government to throw this under the rug. No, our government does not want the public to know just how corrupt it can be. And that's what this show is about, is to bring that forth so that the good people in government have a chance to shine and have a chance to cut out those rotten spaces in our government that are destroying our country. And the wild horses are America, and they are the messengers to the American people of what our government is becoming. So on that note, let's watch this little clip from Ely, Nevada, January 2011. These horses that were rounded up were most likely those victims that went to a very cruel death in Mexico where they stabbed them in the spine. Okay, this is Meet America, folks, and we are out here getting ready to watch the BLM gather. This is Chris Hannafel. And Chris, why don't you explain to the public, what I'm seeing here is a lot of empty, vast land that could hold thousands of horses, and I see a few tattered herds, and a landscape that's pristine and gorgeous. I do not see any destruction. And I just am very bewildered that the BLM says that all this land here has been ruined by horses and they have to be removed. Can you give us an explanation for that, please?
Well, I think I'd start by suggesting again that you take a look at the environmental assessment, which explains everything really well. We're a multiple use mandate, you know, the BLM, and it is cold out here. Bear with me just a second.
It's 11 below.
It is 11 below now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, you know, I would suggest that you take a look at the environmental assessment. We do have horse herds out here, but if you take a closer look at the horses, you can see that they're really struggling to get through the snow, to get sufficient nutrition. They're not in the best of health right now, body condition wise. We do need to keep the numbers down to the appropriate management level so that we can keep the herds here without having a serious health problem for the horses down the road. It's just a matter of keeping the numbers within the amount that the range can support. If that, do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, they seem
All right, I'd like to add here, first of all, multiple use. Under the Wild Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act, it states, first page, that the horses and the wild burros will get devoted principal presence. That means they get first choice of food on the land, water on the land. That's not happening under BLM. They are removing the horses, saying they're overpopulated, they're damaging the environment, and that, as he was saying, they aren't in the best of health. Well, we managed to capture some horses, and they looked perfectly healthy. Now remember, it's winter, but horses, these wild horses, have the ability to survive circumstances that our domestic horses probably would have to evolve to be able to do. So we're going to go back now and show you, on that particular day, we were able to capture some wild horses, and they were frolicking in the snow, and you know, maybe they weren't the fattest that they are in spring, but they were totally healthy and capable. And as you, Bryan, have stated, in the past, wild horses and deer and buffalo, they all have their... Why don't you explain what you explained to Chris?
These are wild animals. Wild animals sometimes starve. They live in nature. To go and why are they talking about pampering them? How they have to be rescued and so forth? They're wild animals. They're part of the ecosystem. They should be left alone. If they care so much about these horses, Annie, then why are they driving them at 12 degrees below? And I'm talking about 12 degrees Fahrenheit. 32 is freezing. 32 Fahrenheit. We're not 0 degrees Celsius. 12 degrees Celsius wouldn't be so cold, but 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow, that's like 45 degrees below freezing. So, you know, the suffering that these animals endure from being driven at high-speed helicopter chases and tormented is just amazing. The BLM, like you said, the primary presence is supposed to be horse under the Free Roaming Wild Horse and Burro Act, but they're not the primary presence when they reduce the population to just a few handful of horses for like 640,000 acres and replace those horses with all kinds of cattle and stuff. So, you know, the law is very clear. I think we have a lawless government, and, you know, the cattle are outnumbering the horses. So this is just all about money, I believe. I think we have the revolving door between our government and the Interior Department of the Interior that's supposed to be taking care of these wild horses. We seem to have a revolving door in every single department of our government now, because our politicians are taking so many campaign contributions from all these special interests, you know, and dirtying their own selves up by doing so. But these wild horses are magnificent creatures, and the BLM is tormenting them with helicopters, which is one of the greatest atrocities I've ever witnessed. It's totally evil.
I totally agree. And let's go on now to witness some of the shots we got earlier on this video from showing you some of the horses.
Probably do more good by targeting.
Okay, so now that is the number of the U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch. And it's so important, folks, for you to call and demand justice and ask for justice. And that gives her the support she needs to make sure this issue doesn't go away. We are now going to watch this segment of the wild horses that we were able to capture. There's the horses. Oh,
the horse.
Did you see the bull movie?
Yeah.
Back there?
the what?
Yeah.
Did we see what?
The droppings.
There's a stallion. Hello, darlings.
Oh, I wish I had my... Are you getting it? Let me know when you're done. We'll continue on.
It's a rare sight nowadays to see a wild horse on the land.
Where is he? He's down below.
I see him.
That looks like a younger horse.
There we go, darlings. Look at how healthy he is.
Yeah.
Healthy. No one can survive this, but that beautiful horse. And the BLM is saying they're starving. Here's another example of their lies and their deceit and their destructiveness, taking the last little remnants of our wild away as they take our own freedom away.
Look at how spirited they are.
Look at those beautiful ones.
They belong.
This is your America, Americans, and you better start getting active because your government has no respect for you. And this is a typical example of it, taking the last of your wild horses with lies and deceits.
All right.
This beautiful land, all this beautiful land where the wild horses could roam. See how empty it is? There's not the millions of horses there should be, or even the 100,000. The BLM is saying there's 700,000 cattle, and yet they begrudge our 28,000 that may be left. We're not even sure. Horse activists are saying that it might be as low as 15,000. And BLM is saying it can be as high as 37 or 38,000. But folks, look at all this beautiful land where the horses could dwell, our public lands, and they're taking them all, taking it all away, and it's empty. That's how mean-spirited our government is. This is all empty lands, and yet they talk about the environmental impacts of the horse, yet huge gouges of earth for mining are allowed, where they don't even replace the environment. But they begrudge the horse its hoofprints upon the land. But they begrudge the horse its hoofprints upon the land.
So this is a letter I was talking about that Congressman Sam Farr has written, and it's so important, folks. Excuse me as I try to adjust the lighting here, and my eyes looking too sparkly there. But anyway, I'm going to read this letter to you, and I hope that you will contact Loretta Lynch and write her as well. So it basically is outlining the lawlessness of the BLM. And it says, Dear Ms. Lynch, Ms. Caldwell, and Mr. Cruden, the Office of Inspector General with the OIG for the United States Department of Interior recently published a troubling report that details the Bureau of Land Management's failure to follow current law and policy through its administration of the Wild Horse and Burro program. As the OIG report outlines, between 2008 and 2012, the BLM failed to prevent Colorado-based livestock hauler Tom Davis from acquiring 1,794 wild horses, which Davis subsequently sold to kill buyers. These kill buyers sent the horses to Mexico, where they were slaughtered for human consumption. Furthermore, BLM spent approximately $140,000 in taxpayers' funds in transporting those horses to Mr. Davis. Can you believe that, folks? We're talking criminal employees here, and guess what? Although the Office of Inspector General investigation was referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Colorado and the State of Colorado, Conchas County District Attorney's Office, both offices declined civil or criminal prosecution. So you see what I mean? These are U.S. Attorney Generals in the state of Colorado. In my opinion, he's part of the criminal system. He's part of allowing these criminals to get away with what they're getting away with, unraveling and bringing forth a whole unraveling of our law and our justice for the American people, and wasting our tax dollars. That man needs to be fired. He needs to be fired and he needs to be prosecuted because he's not doing his job under God, the oath he took for the American people. He's not abiding by that. So they all need to be canned, and they don't want to be canned, so they're going to keep quiet. And unless there's a huge outcry from us, and it doesn't take a lot, just call up the phone, pick up the number by the thousands and say, you count me in. It's not going to happen. So I'm going to continue reading here. The Office of Inspector General also referred evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Mexico, and they refused. And I'm just going down here because we don't have much time. And although the OIG investigation was referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Colorado and then also New Mexico, and the OIG also referred evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of New Mexico. This evidence is of a U.S. Department of Agriculture certified veterinarian who admitted that he never inspected any of the horses as required by law before signing international health certificates, which are required before horses can be exported. So you have here, folks, the veterinarian, that's supposed to inspect our meat and make sure it's safe, not doing so. So let's hear a little bit from Bryan now. What's your take on this? Isn't this, excuse me, we've got to get the lighting right. What's your take on this, Bryan?
Well, Annie, if I break the law or a poor person breaks the law, if a person's hungry and they steal a pizza or a piece of bread, there's no mercy on them. Mm-hmm. But because these people are rich and powerful, they have their representatives in government, whether through the revolving door, they're not being prosecuted. Now, clearly they've broken the law, so they need to be prosecuted. I also recommend that people contact President Barack Obama, because things have been pretty bad under President Barack Obama. He's done some good things, but there's still the revolving door, and the buck stops at the top, and he's gotten many thousands of letters on this, so this is a stain on the presidency, and he has a chance to try to fix it before he's out of office. We need to protect these horses. Horses, what we do to the animals, we do to ourselves. We're all one. You know, Mahatma Gandhi said the life of an animal is just as valuable as the life of a human being. Let's not stain our souls by doing this horrible activity. We've got to stop it and create a better future.
Thank you. And Patricia, how about you? What have you got to say as a person who has supported rescuing horses? You've helped me immensely and so have you, Bryan, both of you, to save horses. So we have about a minute left. What would you say to the public?
I would say to please write your congressman and tell them to stop this killing our wonderful, wonderful wild horses. They're part of America. You're America. Don't let them do this. It's cruel and unjustified. And I feel like crying myself when I hear about it. And I see these beautiful creatures who just want to live, just like you wouldn't want this to happen to your dog or your cat. But these beautiful creatures are just slaughtered. And the meat is sold in Mexico, from what I understand. And please, I'm begging you to call your congressman, your senator, call anyone you can to stop this. Okay, thank you.
All right, well, we have to close now, but just wanted you to know, if you can contact the U.S. Attorney, give her the support she needs, maybe we can get justice. And justice for the horses is justice for you and I. This is huge, folks. Thanks for watching. I'm Annie Griffin, and this is Meet America. See you next time.